Have you ever wondered what it really means to stand up for your rights? In today's story, one man finds himself face to face with the law in a tense situation that could have gone very differently. When the police stopped him, they expected him to fold under pressure. But instead, he chose to defy their demands, with nothing but knowledge of his rights on his side. How did he do it? What gave him the confidence to say no when most would have given in? This isn't just about an ID refusal. It's about standing firm and knowing the boundaries of authority. His calm determination not only stunned the officers, but also left them with no choice but to back off. But the question remains, how far can you really push back without crossing the line? Stick around to find out, because this story will leave you inspired, and maybe even empowered. It all started on a quiet afternoon. He was driving home, minding his own business, when flashing lights appeared in his rearview mirror. At first, he thought it must be a routine stop, maybe a broken taillight or something minor. But as the officer approached, something felt off. The questions began, simple at first, but they quickly shifted in tone. "Where are you headed? Can I see some ID?" The man knew this wasn't about a traffic violation anymore. He had done nothing wrong, yet the situation felt like a test of control. Instead of panicking, he remembered something he had learned. You don't always have to hand over your ID unless certain legal conditions are met. The officer didn't expect him to know this, and when he politely refused, it was as if a line had been drawn. The tension thickened, and all eyes were on what would happen next. The officer's expression shifted, a mix of surprise and mild frustration. He wasn't used to people pushing back, especially not so calmly. "Sir, I need to see your identification," the officer repeated, this time with a little more authority in his voice. But the man didn't waver. He respectfully replied, "Am I being detained, or am I free to go?" That one question seemed to catch the officer off guard. For a moment, there was silence, just the hum of passing cars and the crackle of the officer's radio. Meanwhile, inside the man's mind, his heart was pounding. He knew standing up like this was risky, but he also knew his rights were on his side. He wasn't trying to create conflict. He just didn't want to be another person pressured into compliance without reason. The officer stepped back slightly, now radioing someone for assistance. A second patrol car pulled up, and the situation grew even more intense. As the second officer stepped out of the car, the air seemed to grow heavier. The man stayed in his vehicle, keeping his hands visible on the steering wheel, just as he had been taught. He knew this wasn't the time to make any sudden moves. The two officers huddled together, speaking in low voices, occasionally glancing back at him. He could feel the weight of their scrutiny, but he reminded himself to stay calm. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about standing up for what was right. One of the officers approached again, this time with a firmer tone. "Sir, refusing to provide identification can escalate this situation. Are you sure you want to go down this road?" The words hung in the air like a challenge. The man took a slow breath and replied, steady and polite, "Unless you can articulate a crime I've committed, I believe I'm within my rights to decline." The officer's jaw tightened. A small crowd had begun to gather at a safe distance, their murmurs adding to the pressure. Inside the car, the man could feel the tension boiling over. Would they push harder, or would his resolve hold? It was all about to come to a head. The tension was already high, but things took an unexpected turn when a third vehicle pulled up, this one unmarked. Out stepped a plainclothes officer, someone who seemed to carry more authority. The man in the car felt a new wave of unease. Who was this, and why had they been called in? The plainclothes officer didn't approach immediately. Instead, he spoke with the others, gesturing toward the car as if assessing the situation. It was clear they were debating their next move. Inside, the man gripped the steering wheel a little tighter, but his expression remained calm. He had prepared for moments like this, but he couldn't ignore the rising tension. The plainclothes officer finally walked over, leaning slightly into the open window. "Sir, this doesn't need to escalate. Just provide your ID and we can all move on." The tone was different, less aggressive but more calculated. The man took another steady breath. "With all due respect, I'm just exercising my rights. If I'm free to go, I'd like to continue my day." The officer studied him closely, almost as if trying to read him. Then, in a move no one saw coming, the plainclothes officer motioned for the others to step back. Was this a sign of de-escalation, or was something bigger about to unfold? The stakes had never felt higher. The plainclothes officer stepped back, raising a hand as if signaling the others to hold off. For a moment, it seemed like the tension might ease. But then he leaned toward the man again, his tone calm yet firm. "You seem to know your rights well. However, refusing to cooperate can sometimes lead to misunderstandings. Are you sure you want to continue this path?" The man stayed composed, meeting his gaze. "I haven't done anything wrong, and I believe I'm within the law. I'd just like to be on my way." The officer paused, studying him for what felt like an eternity. Then with a nod, he straightened up and said, "You're free to go." The man blinked, momentarily stunned. Just like that. But as he prepared to leave, the plainclothes officer added, "Not many people handle situations like this so calmly. You made your point, but don't assume it'll always end this way." As the man drove off, his heart was racing. He had stood his ground, and it had worked, but the officer's words lingered. It was a victory, yes, but also a reminder of how fragile these moments can be. He had won this time, but the fight for knowing and exercising rights wasn't over. As he drove away, the man couldn't help but reflect on what had just happened. He knew he had taken a risk by standing firm, but it wasn't about defiance for the sake of it. It was about showing that knowledge and composure could make all the difference in situations like these. It wasn't easy, and the outcome could have been very different. But this experience proved one thing. Understanding your rights is powerful. The encounter left him both relieved and a little shaken. He realized how close he had come to things escalating, and how important it was to remain respectful yet assertive. He hoped the officers might think twice the next time they encountered someone who simply wanted to exercise their rights. For him, it was a victory, but it also reinforced a deeper truth. Standing up for yourself isn't just about courage. It's about being informed and staying calm under pressure.